Hi everyone, my name is Foka Ofayariv and I am a teacher here in Tara Yoga Center in London. Tara is part of a federation called Atman Federation of Yoga and Meditation, which has more than 100 schools worldwide. In today's lecture, as you're going to see here, we will speak about what to do actually when we cannot go outside and how we can go inside. This lecture will represent 7 fundamental tools and key elements, both practical and theoretical, that will enable us to take from this unique period of the corona the best we can for our transformation as human beings, for our spiritual growth. This lecture is based upon the wonderful book of How to Spiritualize Your Day-to-Day Life, written by my mentor Gregorian Bevolaro. Now, many years ago, we sat here in the Tara Yoga Center in London, and we thought, what actually represents Tara Yoga Center? Where we had to think about a logo, who we actually are, and we had the whole fascinating morning and afternoon of debate about this and feeling. And then we came out with an idea of what actually makes Tara so special, and we came out with the slogan, Tara makes every day extraordinary. And then we thought about actually what makes every day extraordinary. What makes every day extraordinary is not the extraordinary necessarily things that you do, but the extraordinary participation that one has to this miraculous game of life. Now, this game of life is continuing whether you're inside or outside. The game of life and the art of living is something that we ought to deepen, and especially in this period, which we have much more time in a way. We have much more the space to deepen that because we are cut off from our mundane day-to-day experience. We're cut off from our comfort zone. We have now a chance to reinvent ourselves. So in the following, we will present 7 ways of making a life extraordinary, and you will see they do not include bungee jumping, they do not include wild trips to the savannah or whatever other things that now we cannot do, but they include 7 keys such as awareness, mental control, the importance of love, happiness, Carpe diem, saying yes to life, and many other, detachment and many other intrinsic exercise and knowledge that will enable us to get the best out of this coming period. Now, the first and foremost tool that we speak about here will be awareness. And awareness is the flow of the attention both towards the object of our attention and towards the subject who perceives it. Otherwise, the game of awareness represents the fact that when we have this, we want to live an extraordinary life, we have to have a vivid experience, and as vivid experiencer, the one who experienced that. So as vivid reality on the outside as it is on the inside. And in this lecture, as you will see that is unfolding, we will discover these tools to generally create an extraordinary life, beginning and returning to this unique key of being aware. So I hope you enjoy the lecture, and as you see also in the end we have an exercise for you, and we are very much looking forward to hear both your comments, questions and lively participation. So thank you for your attention and enjoy. You cannot shift things inside when they're still in oblivion. You cannot modify that which still lies in the darkness. Awareness is the key, or it is the light that modifies so we can actually transform that. Now, in this period, we are confronted with a lot of things that pop up inside of us because finally we slow down. We have time to look within. And this is a great period actually to develop awareness. And this is the tool for emotional balance. It is the tool of personal growth. It is the tool of wisdom in essence. Thus, it is extremely important to become aware of the multiple layers that represent our being. This is why we can be aware, for example, of how my body is. If I would even say like this, if we are fully aware of how my body is, I will not eat things which are not good for me. The thing why we sometimes suffer after we eat is because we were not aware of the needs of our body. In Israel, we had this joke that now with the corona, we eat very regular meals, 30 times a day. So this obviously represents the lack of awareness over the body, because you don't realize what actually the body needs. Maybe the body needs fasting, for example, that day. Who knows what actually are the needs of your body but you? And first of all needs to be the awareness of your physical body, thus aligning hours of sleep, exercises, awareness upon what you eat, and so forth. Then comes the awareness on the emotional level. Often we are in the discussion and you say, oh, I didn't mean that. Well, you didn't mean it because you are not aware of what is in your heart. Or you find yourself in a distance from someone else and often alienated from ourselves. It is because we are not aware of that which is within us. We're not aware of our emotions. Thus, the awareness over our emotions will help us to create what is called in the tantric and yogic system, the process of inner alchemy, in which inferior emotions are combusted and modulated to superior ones, in which one can deepen in his own heart. Then we have also the awareness over the mental structure, becoming aware of patterns of thoughts, becoming aware of actually why or what are we wandering towards when we are kind of half daydreaming or when this machine inside of us continues on its own. We will have more about this mental machine or the mental focus in a later talk here. So this awareness that has multiple levels is the key to transform, and I would say this period, which we have much more time for ourselves, which we have much more possibilities to look within, we should first and foremost develop our awareness. And for this, as you will see, for each of the 7 points, we will have a small exercise. One of them we will do here, and the other ones you can do home. So the exercise goes as follows. From the moment you wake up, whatever, 7 a.m., hopefully, around sunrise, you will write in a designated notebook, so not in just any notebook, it is notebook designated for that, a list, or you can even say just a small paragraph on how you feel, otherwise, the awareness on the 3 levels to start with. How is your body? How is your emotional state in the moment? And what is preoccupying your mind? And every 2 hours, we will repeat this exercise. So we will put the clock, anyhow we're home, so it should be pretty simple and doesn't take more than a few minutes every 2 hours. We stop and we become aware. We as if recollect ourselves from our attention that goes outwards and we bring the attention inwards. And we will write. Physically, for example, I just woke up, I feel full of energy. The sun is shining from the window. Emotionally, I feel extremely calm within myself. I feel that somehow I'm gathered within. Mentally, my mind is very quiet. There's no thoughts. I just have a feeling, kind of a remnants and remembering of the dream. 7 a.m., 9 a.m. At breakfast, I feel so. I hope you get the point. We will keep this log, you can say. We can keep this notebook for 2 weeks. Now, after that 2 weeks, which is, we can say, it's an experience, an experiment, that we do with ourselves. After these 2 weeks, we will contemplate exactly, or otherwise we will have the ability of seeing patterns of thoughts. We can see the link between the physical, emotional, and mental. We can notice mental pattern, emotional pattern. Suddenly, there is a whole world revealed within us. This is a very simple exercise that will enable us to get closer to ourselves. And as we see also in this period, when we are confronted very much with being so much by ourselves, I would say that this exercise will bring back one of our best friends, which is actually ourselves. Otherwise, this ability of being intimate with one's own self and not feeling anxious when we are sometimes alone, this comes when we are aware of all the myriads and all the beauties that we have within us. And first we need to become aware of them. We need to shine light on that which is within us. And wonderfully, to conclude this, Socrates said, an unexamined life is simply not worth living. Thus we can say that this tool of awareness brings us to the examined sublime life. The next of the 7 keys to reach an extraordinary life and to deepen our journey in this period is what wonderfully called Carpe diem. I think it's the next slide. Which is finding a life of purpose, which you might find it as contradictory, because Carpe diem in Latin means seize the day, while actually purpose means as if something which is unfolding in the future. Actually, The Carpe diem means to live a life of purpose every day. Now, I don't know if you remember in the Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams. He goes there behind, he's a teacher there in university, and there is a group of students that he's guiding them, very beautifully doing so. And he shows them on the wall there a group of youngsters who are in the school, you know, in America they have from 50 years ago, or 100 years ago they were. And he tells them, look in their eyes. They are young people exactly like you. They have everything exactly like you. But now, all of them there are fertilizing daffodils. So I tell you boys, Carpe diem, seize the day. And very beautifully he's doing that. He's giving them this impulse of inspiration to realize that life of purpose, because what actually brings purpose to our life, it's finality. Otherwise, you'll have endless time to do it. The fact that life has a finality calls us to seize the day. Now, specifically about this and seizing the day, of course it comes with understanding that seizing the day or seizing our life comes with seizing the present moment. The only place where life pulsates, the only place where life actually exists, the only place where we can transform. Now, the concept of Carpe diem and integrating it fully means that we are realizing each and every day becomes a part of this magnificent puzzle, jigsaw, that is the formation of our reality, our life. And wonderfully, it was said that when one reaches that final moment of his existence, when one reaches his moment of death, one will be able to see the myriad of how his life went, the complexity of all life's interactions. And then one can see how each and every moment as if led to the other one. There is such a complex guidance that comes when we learn how to follow it. We can say that each day represents a piece in this jigsaw of existence. But for it to manifest like this, each day needs to be lived to its full. Each day needs to be lived to its highest potential so it can be part of that structure, of that whole that we will then experience as a greater purpose. And to give you an idea of exactly how it works, as you can see on the slide, there is, you know those games, Connect the Dots? Super sweet game. We all used to play it when we were kids. You have all these dots and then you connect the numbers and then, ta-da, a horse, a pizza, a ferry, whatever. In the beginning, it seems like random dots there. But then, when you start to connect them, otherwise, when you take, analogically here, each day and you go from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, then purpose arises. You start to find the meaning of that which you see there, of your life. And that is that eureka moment, and you will realize that purpose is constantly being created. Purpose is not something out there. Purpose is constantly in the making. And that living that life of purpose, challenging as it might be, because a life of purpose also calls us to transform, also calls us to grow, also calls us to go beyond our limitation. But that life of purpose that one is having, I would say, the responsibility to live, is that which will give us in this period the ability of not sinking to a certain kind of depression, a certain kind of heaviness and laziness, but to realize that also this period is part of the magnitude of our jigsaw. If you want a film that shows very nice this idea of the jigsaw of life, is Slumdog Millionaire, in which he's brought there. I hope you remember the movie. If you haven't seen it now, if you have some time home, you can see that. It's a very good movie. But he could see how each and every life experience that he has played a meaningful role. And our part in it is to give every day our best. We will be able to connect those wonderful dots here on the connect the dots if we manage to complete what was needed to do in point 1 to go to point 2. Each day needs to live in that way. Each day, wisely said, needs to be seized so we can go from one point to another. And then the purpose will arise out of that. Now, a very interesting thing is, I know now we are all very afraid and very terrified of the corona, But as number of death, the amount of people who committed suicide is by far more than people who died from the coronavirus. I would say that one of the biggest viruses in our society is that of the lack of purpose, that of the lack of meaning, that of the lack of a bigger perspective, which often leads people to take their own life. So now when we are all afraid of this outer virus, or many are afraid of the outer virus, it's also time to reflect on how we cure this inner virus that enter our society, or that lack of meaning, the lack of purpose. And now the exercise of Carpe Diem. Now, here you can either do it in a notebook, it is a different notebook, or if you have only one notebook because you cannot go out much, use the same notebook. The idea behind it is like this. You contemplate in the end of the day that has passed. And you can just look at it, give a reflection for the day that has been. And we will look at 4 fundamental aspects. 1, how many moments during this day I was fully present? Carpe diem is the present moment. How many days was I fully there? Number 1. Number 2, what are the most beautiful things that happened today? It's the awareness also of the beauty. This is a fundamental key in also to be able to extract that which is beautiful, realizing that. Number 3, did I give my best today? And I know it sounds like a bit like a sportsman thing. Did you give your best at It's not. Did you give your best to life? And I can give you something very interesting there. When you go to work and you are trying to save energies, you're trying not to give your best because you need to give your best later on. You need to do something later on. Or you just got a bit used to it and you just try to withdraw in your little corner. The day goes much slower. You are much more tired. There is an opposite feeling of conservation of energy. You actually feel depleted of energy because you try to conserve it. The mystery is, because it's not a linear process, the more you give to each moment, the more you have. So in this moment, in this day in your life, did you give your best to anything? Now we are confronting exactly that. We are home, what it is to give our best to. Well, hopefully in this talk and in what otherwise we teach here in Tara, it's a lot to give our best to. This is the best time to contemplate. It's the best time to meditate. It's a wonderful time to practice yoga. It's a wonderful time to tune in your immune system, to increase the power of love. There's so many things that you can do. Give your best. This is what actually also will enable us to go from point 1 to point 2 in this wonderful point dot to dot game. And the 4th point, is there anything today that I regret? Now, the idea here in contemplating that is not the idea to wallow in self, oh, I regret this and I regret that, and to have the slightly Catholic blaming ourselves, I'm a sinner, forgive me, my Lord. But to realize that what actually we regret is what we didn't do, not what we did. And they made a very interesting research about it. In a hospice, there was one of the nurses who dealt with thousands of people who were just about to die. And she asked them the question, what they regret in their life. There is nothing in the first 5 of what they regret in their life is what they did. All of the number 5 of the biggest regret is what they didn't do. Not enough time with your friends, not enough time to fulfill the calling of the heart, not enough time to love, not enough joy and happiness. Those are the things that we regretted. So when we look, in the end of the day, what do I regret? Don't just look at what you did, but also look, maybe I should have done more of that. Maybe I should have been more expressive in the way I related emotionally. Maybe I should give more time and to listen to that person better, or whatever otherwise it is. But to have that, this is what will prevent us from regretting and will lead us to a life of freedom. And the last point here, was my day aligned and integrated with my aspirations and my ideals? Now, first one is to find the deepest aspirations of the heart, or at least to start the search, and the ideals and principles that one aligns his life with. It is extremely meaningful that in this period we aim to align our actions with our beliefs. Aim to align and integrate that which we do with the aspirations of our heart. This will create or will remove the friction that often appears within, that is if we do some things but we don't believe in it. Or otherwise, sometimes we think something and we act differently. We know something is wrong and we still feel compliant or obliged to do so. Ask yourself, are my actions aligned? Because out of that alignment will appear this ability of connecting the dot and finding that purpose of our existence. So this is the second point, seize the day, Carpe diem. Now, if you're out there, which I hope somebody's out there except the wonderful team here, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I have Kate here with me, and she's... if you have questions, she will interrupt me and then we can have a wonderful discussion like this. The third point is say yes to life. Cultivate a genuine positive attitude. Now this was coined by the wonderful psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, which his journey of saying yes to life and taking a positive attitude, and through that radically transforming his life, he presents in his book A Man's Search for Meaning, in which he shows how through a life in a concentration camp, by having this attitude, he managed genuinely to stay alive, and not just like as a Bee Gees song, but most of the people around him died, and through his unique attitude, he managed to stay alive. Now, I don't want to take all the joy from you or to create a massive spoiler when you read the book. Warmly recommended. He coined that idea that when you say yes to life, when you say yes to everything that lies within you. So creating a genuine attitude, or a genuine positive attitude. It's the next slide. The first point that is very interesting to look here, that is wonderful to deepen, is to take both hardships and victories as means to constantly learn. You see, the attitude of saying yes to life enables us to constantly be a genuine students, or otherwise constantly being a genuine disciple of life itself. And when you are a disciple of life, you will treat both the failure and the success as means for growth. And this attitude will also enable us to fear not making mistakes. And this is fundamental when we speak about growing as a human being, fundamental in spiritualizing our life. Now, to insist on this, imagine that when you are babies, when you just learned how to walk, the first time you got up, you would fall down and you say, I failed. Walking is not for me. Mom, can I have those kneecaps and elbow caps? Because I want to keep on crawling. Because I think this walking business, I'm just making mistakes. I tried like 2-3 times. I feel a bit ridiculous over here. Mom, can you just... Obviously, we don't do that. I mean, hopefully, I never met a baby who stayed like that. But interestingly, in life, we often have this attitude. Oh, we make a mistake. Oh, we feel so bad. Oh, we don't want to do it again. And instead of learning how to walk, we go with those kneecaps. And instead of understanding that one learns also through making mistakes, and one have to awaken a state of inner equanimity in front of victories and failure, and constantly learning from mistakes, this is the correct attitude of growth. Now, of course, one should not learn mistakes and just keep on doing the mistake without transforming. By no means. But neither one should fear those mistakes. Thus, the saying yes to life is not a passive state that says, whatever happens, happens. I'm just saying yes. The saying yes to life is a very active, embracing, dynamic attitude in which you take whatever life brings to you with both hands. Because life is our greatest teacher. Through living life, and this is, I would say, one of the strongest dictums of the tantric path, through living life to the full, one will reach this highest of heavens or this state of enlightenment, not by refraining, but by embracing. And saying yes to life is exactly this attitude of embracing. This saying yes to life, or this genuine positive attitude, will also make it so that when sufferings and difficulties appears in our life, and they are inevitable, there's nobody in this planet who didn't had a bad day, on emotions which was difficult, a complex period. We all had them. Saying yes to life will make the shift from being a victim of the suffering that was caused by someone, that now we are alone in the house, whatever caused that thing, that virus. We all blame the guy who ate that bat soup in China a while ago. That because of him we all have to stay indoors and whatever. There is suffering occurring otherwise. This genuine attitude will shift it that those sufferings or those difficulties are all part of our path of growth. And you know what? For the caterpillar, it's not easy. He's there churning himself. But out of that, a butterfly arises. When we are able to wisely take the sufferings that are sometimes created in our life, or the difficulties, the challenges, and we're managing to create this positive attitude that will alchemize them, and that which is seemingly now a punishment or a difficulty is actually an invitation for us to grow and to transform. This is one of the fundamental attitudes that in times of crisis, which we are now as a society, and many individuals are in crisis, both due to the anxiety, due to the fact that sometimes you know somebody who is sick, because of the difficulties of being alone, the difficulties of having no job. All this creates, obviously, for many of us, a state of sometimes suffering. This is like a catalyzer, a shift that will take us. This suffering that I feel is actually a way for me to transform. Accepting it can shift it. Now, with this wonderful attitude, we will also start to see how we can gradually integrate ourselves within a greater whole. You know, when we are in this dynamic phase or the dynamic inner state, we are much easier, it is much easier for us to get in tune with a wider harmony, with a wider symphony, one can say. And it's a very interesting thing that I will not go into the whole mechanism behind it, but in quantum mechanics, quantum physics, they discover that the person who is performing the experiment influences the experiment. Otherwise, the state of mind that one is having is even have also the ability of modifying the matter there. Now, interestingly enough, when we are in that dynamic, inner, positive state, saying yes to life, also our life and life occurrences become more positive on an objective scale. And now, it is due to the fact that we are the creator of our existence to a certain extent, and thus by participating in an active, embracive way, in a positive way, we are thus learning how to wisely integrate within a greater whole, which this feeling of integration, I share for myself, it is one of the most beautiful joys that the soul can experience. I mean, I used to play music years ago. It wasn't that great, but I had moments. And in those moments when you play a perfect tune, I was a trumpet player. Perfect tune was much for me to say, but I was in tune with the others around. You would feel somehow as if you're fusing with everyone there. Now, the same feeling happens when we are very actively participating. We are playing our tool perfect to our abilities. We are then as if perfectly in tune with the symphony of life. And this perfect tuning comes from this active participation, comes from this wonderful positive attitude that we learn to embrace. The exercise of saying yes to life. That's the next slide. As you see, there are two kittens here. One, as you can see from their face, rejecting everything. The other one, as you hopefully can see from their face, accepting everything. Now, in this exercise, we will aim to look within, and we will notice what happens to our body, state of mind, and so forth when we aim to resist what happens to us. For example, we are home due to the corona for 2 weeks. Our biggest trip of the days is to the supermarket. What happened to you when you resist? Notice this. When you just stay and think about how it is to resist this. Become upset, depressed, anxious, lazy. Probably you can name it yourself, tense in the body, and so forth. Now, take a few minutes after the same thing. I'm home now. And take a positive attitude. What this situation can help you to learn, to assimilate. What is the positive outcome of that? Start to put all your energies in that. Embracing that situation, like the cat above. Enjoying it, to whatever way it can be. Notice how it modifies radically both your physical state, less tension and so forth, and even more meaningful, your entire emotional structure and the way you deal with that, the situation that which we are now on. So this is the exercise for saying yes to life. The fourth of the keys to live an extraordinary life and to use this unique period is to cultivate genuine detachment. Now, the thing with detachment, often we mistake detachment for being indifferent. Otherwise, detachment, you can say that which occurs there is not reflecting on you. So you're detached to it. But also, if you're indifferent, that doesn't matter to you. So they are not one and the same. The main difference is that detachment is including a full involvement, while indifference implies that you don't care. Now, the idea is that we put synonyms involvement and attachment. And then we say, okay, if I'm involved, I also have to be attached to that. But what genuine detachment on the spiritual path reveals to us, and when we cultivate, is that by being genuinely involved and by understanding and having the correct, wise perspective, we will not fall into the attachments that are seemingly born from themselves. Actually, they are not born from themselves. It is a mechanism of our consciousness. Thus, we can say that detachment is a superior perspective. It's a choice that we can make of seeing things from a higher level. Now, I will kindly ask you to do with me an experiment to make it a bit more plastic what detachment means. I will kindly ask all of you to take your right thumb and to give a good look to your right thumb. It's not, we don't want you to like it on Facebook, we just want you to raise your right thumb. You see the right thumb. Now I would like you to bring it so close to your eye that your eyelids hit it. Can you see the right thumb now? No, really, isn't it? Put it up again and again. I mean, hopefully you get the point. The thumb was there, the eye was there. What actually made the difference is our perspective on it. We've seen it otherwise at a distance. We could contemplate the fullness of it. In this case, our thumb, but let's say difficulties in relationships. Those are often we're very attached to. So we have a difficulty in our relationship, and then we have a lot of attachments there. We are involved often in an egoistic way. We are very contracted there. And exactly what happens, the thumb is so close to our eyes, we cannot see it actually for what it is. And detachment is putting it there so you can see it for what it is. And detachment goes hand in hand with wisdom. Wisdom literally means knowing the cause, understanding that which is beyond. When we are very attached to a situation, we notice only the consequence, and we are only dealing with the consequences. When we cultivate a genuine detached perspective, we see the causes because we see the reality for what it is. And as you see, the thumb is not less yours when you have it out there or very close. It's just the shift of our perspective. Now you see, the shift of our perspective upon that will also enable life to take a very organic unfoldment. And when we are very attached, we have a tendency to confine life to how we want to make it. You know, in Japan, for example, they make square watermelons because it's easier to transport. And sometimes we are a little bit doing like this with our life. We try to put everything so it fits.
Otherwise, we don't let an organic grow, we confine it. And a good Jewish joke about it, and I can tell Jewish joke because I am Jewish. So there was a Jewish grandma going with her 2 kids. And, when the trolley, and that's one in the trolley, when she holds the hand and she meets a friend, says, "Oh, lovely, beautiful grandsons, how old they are?" And then she says, "The lawyer is 5 and the doctor is 7. Nobody is laughing. I hope you laughed there, because here they don't. So the idea behind it is we often, like the Jewish grandma, we try to confine our life in that reality, or to confine reality in according to what we think should happen. And when we awaken a detached perspective, we simply allow it to grow. We are there to support it, but not to confine it. And I will give you a very easy analogy as a way of, sometimes I'm aiming to look at life. I look at life as if my life is in my hand and I'm there to support it. I'm there to hold it. I'm there to nourish that which is there, to let grow all the beauties, to cut down all that is unnecessary. I'm there as the good gardener that aim to create with what God has put in me this Garden of Eden. Now, instead of that, imagine that you hold it very tightly. Oh, life has to be like this, life has to be like that. First thing that happens, you become very stressed, which is one of the consequences of being very attached. You're the bomb of stress. More than this, we're confining life in that way that actually that which was meant to grow beautifully cannot grow. And it is counterproductive for us. This is why the attitude of genuine detachment is helping us to cultivate and grow. Question?
We have a question from Kate, who is listening. Do you have moments where you consciously stop and realize that you need to detach?
Thank you for the question. That's exactly what's happening. Detachment, as you will see now also in the exercise that is following, we are cultivating it as an attitude. You see, detachment is like any qualities. It's a vibration. It's a frequency that we can tune in more and more, or less and less, in accordance to our abilities. So first thing that we do, we cultivate this attitude of detachment by understanding detachment, doing this exercise that will now follow, and so forth. We can cultivate that aspect of detachment. And then when life hits us, because one thing is to practice it when you're alone, just cultivating detachment. And one thing is that when you are in a confronted situation, something happened and you feel the attachments, you feel the shift in perspective, you catch yourself and say, whoa, in this moment, let me look at it differently. Let me have wise perspective. Good. So, 4-step method for awakening the state of detachment. First, we will evoke. Stop making me laugh, guys. Good. So we will evoke a state which is challenging us in the present moment. So we have a state in the present moment. You sit there and you see, okay, this is something that I'm attached to. This is something which is challenging me. Good. Take that. Then, we aim to feel clearly what is challenging us in this situation, and we aim to separate the outer circumstances and the outer people and focus only on that which is challenging us. So, for example, we're challenged at work because our boss is catastrophe, is treating us really bad. So, first we feel the challenge, then we look inside and we cut the boss out of it, and we just look at the feeling that we have inside of us. So we don't project it on the boss. It could be right or not, it's less important, but we look inside of us. What actually is challenging us in this situation? Then we can use, this is actually taken from part of a Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist method, which you can repeat within yourself for 3 times. I nurture the state of detachment and acceptance with a calm and serene equanimity, seeing everything as it is, a divine lesson. And by repeating this, we are shifting the thumb. We can shifting the perspective, so we are able to see that one. Coming back also to the point from before, from Carpe diem, we can see it as part of a greater whole. And by repeating it over and over, we can see in stage 4 how we're overcoming the challenge fully by learning the lessons. Otherwise, we say it and we feel already which each and every repetition, we grow and we are projecting ourselves to that state in which we have achieved that, which we are past it. We are fully detached to the situation. So this exercise for detachment, of course, you do it home, so you cannot, in that moment, as you asked Kate, you cannot just immediately do it sometimes, but you can do it home, and by repeating this, eventually, when you reach to that moment, before being extremely reactive, because we are attached, our perspective is confined, we shifted, and we are free in that moment, we have the wise perspective, and we act accordingly. So this is the 4th of the keys, which is the exercise detachment. And it is extremely valuable in this time when many of us are confronting with a great uncertainty. Our life, basically, we don't know when we will be out of this confinement. I mean, myself, when will I see all our students again? Now we just see them on Zoom and we wave to one another. When can I go back to work? When we are confronted with a lot of things that they were very close to us, so we could easily attach to them. But then the wise perspective is you keep on the link, you're detached, then you see also in this the wonderful lesson that unfolds. Point number 5, or the 5th aspect that we can learn from this period. The mind. The mind can make nectar into poison and poison into nectar. This was said in the tantric text, that the mind has this alchemical ability on both ways. And thus was easily said that the way you see the problem is the problem, the way the mind is confined, this is exactly what it will be seen, because the mind will have this unique ability of shifting the reality in accordance to its structure. Now, the big problem is, as you can see from the PowerPoint, hopefully you see that there is a little person inside the head. You ask yourself, who controls the mind? Because I definitely don't control the mind. Don't know, how many of you try to meditate? Nowadays, I think most people in the world at least try to meditate. And notice, I'm sitting here. There's no reason for me to think about A, B, C, D, E, F, and still I'm thinking about A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm trying to stop it, but they still go around. Well, who is then constantly producing those thoughts? And then one will start a process of self-inquiry to realize that we are not on the control of our mind if we do not take what we said in the first point, awareness, if we don't bring the attention also inwardly. And here we can see that by bringing our attention inwardly, by starting to control the mind, we free ourselves from a lot of the problems which are actually created because the mind is seeing them as a problem. Thus, we cannot even say we see reality. We see our version of reality because the mind is like, it cuts. Otherwise, it gives us a translation of reality that not necessarily is connected to that which reality has. And to give you an easy analogy, and the game between the heart and the mind, imagine that you are in this UN talk, those United Nations in New York, the UN House, and somebody talks from a different country, whatever, there, and you of course don't understand, and you have a translator. You see them all the translators sit on the side and they speak like that. Imagine that the translator doesn't give of what the speaker is saying, and he just he just speaks his own thing. He hears a word and he actually connects it to another story, and then he makes his whole big bubble there. You as the listener, you will listen to what the translator is saying because you cannot depict what actually the speaker was saying. And then you have a very wrong vision of actually what is going on here. Often this is exactly the case with our life. We can see that the role of the mind is to be that very loyal translator of our heart, that the heart perceives and meets reality fully. And then we cut this mental layer that is created that makes it so that it is lost in translation. Otherwise, the mind makes it so that we lose in translation our life. The mind has a very important role. It is the one that will, or it's a tool, and it should not be the master. It should be the wise, the good servant. And for this, we need to gain control over the mind. Because what the tantric teachings were teaching us is what we don't control controls us. And here, with our life, if we'll have to look on it, there's a lot of aspects that we don't control. Because nobody taught us to control them. I mean, luckily we control some basic needs. Otherwise, we need to use Pampers. But our mind, definitely we don't control. It just go wild. Our emotions, I mean, I don't mean to confine them. I mean to control them. As Maria wisely spoke last week, for those of you who hasn't seen it, is now on our Facebook and on YouTube, with the yoga of emotion, to genuine control, to genuinely know your mind, to understand the power of desire, sexual energy, and so forth. All of them, the control is extremely difficult. And what we don't control essentially, or eventually, will control us. This is why it is so important to learn how to control the mind. It was put as one of the key points in all the yogic and tantric texts. It was always again and again repeated there. One should learn how to control his mind. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, wonderfully he said that the process of meditation is the continuous flow of the awareness to the object of meditation. And it could be anything. He even mentions there it should be like hot oil, it's pouring in a homogeneous way. This is how our mind can, or otherwise it has its faculty, if we learn how to use it. Now, how to use the mind, we will reach, and those of you who are in our classes, those of you who or not, we will have later on, hopefully, depending how long this period will take, we'll maybe have some more information about the art of meditation, but meditation is exactly the key for that. So now the exercise for the mental focus. One of the simplest, because I mean, if you have a practice of meditation, meditation is the number one practice. Meditate, meditate, meditate. Increase your meditation, improve the way you are in yoga exercise, increase your level of attention and awareness and daily experiences, fundamental. But if you need them, maybe if you're a bit more new to it, one of the easiest way to begin with that is by experiencing daily these moments of calm of the mind and savoring this mental tranquility. One of the easiest way to do it is what we call a walking meditation, in which we will link our breath, our movement, and our mind in a synergic process. Basically, how you will do, you will stand up, obviously it's a walking meditation, and you will close your eyes and you will start to count within. You choose a number, you can count to 4, it's very easy, and you count to 4 and you inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, you hold the breath, 2, 3, 4, you exhale, 2, 3, 4, you hold the breath, 2, 3, 4, and when you manage to complete this square with 4 steps, inhale, exhale, full, or your lungs full and your lungs empty, when you have these 4 steps, when you manage to complete them, you will take 1 step forward. And like this, you will repeat. And I know it sounds very simple, and I know it sounds also kind of walk in the house. Anyhow, I mean, many of us are doing this right now. So this exercise is a miracle for starting to feel the calm of the mind. Because what you need to do, set yourself, you need to go from one side of the living room to the other. The condition to yourself is that you cannot have any thoughts interrupting the counting. You will just focus on one thing, counting and the breath. By doing it like that, you will see how wisely or how wonderfully you become calmer and calmer and the mind quiets down. Now one asks, why do we use the breath in such an aspect? Because the breath is one of the few faculties of our human existence, of our also physical and psychic, which goes both automatic and otherwise it goes without awareness and can be induced in full awareness. Otherwise, if now I'll tell you all to breathe in and to breathe out, we all did it consciously. But it's not like if you don't think about it, you stop breathing and you die. So it's a process that both goes consciously and unconsciously. This is why it is extremely meaningful that we move it from an unconscious process to a conscious one by breathing in this way. So this is the 5th. Am I good with time? What time is it? Good. The 5th one is happiness. 6th one, sorry. Learning how to truly be happy. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you've read in your curriculum, I once contemplated what I learned in 12 years of school, from the age of 6 to the age of 18, and later on in university, and nobody spoke about happiness. Nada. And then I was asking myself, how are we supposed to learn how to be happy? Isn't it so that if you want to learn something, you need to have some education in that? I mean, any master is first of all an apprentice. And how can we be an apprentice of the art of being happy? And here, one of the wonderful terms is that happiness is truly an inside job. Any form of happiness that we are only relating to an exterior aspect is ephemeral. The genuine state of happiness is that which is cultivated within. Now, in the yogic and tantric texts, especially in India, always they refer to that state of happiness arises from knowing one's own self. And in the exercise we will reach and we will speak a bit more in depth. But the first thing that they were actually mentioned in the Hindu tradition, that in order to understand one's own self, and in the ancient time they mentioned that the key for happiness is finding fulfillment in the 4 fundamental levels of our existence. They spoke about the first level, which is called artha, which is the fulfillment on the material aspect, the fulfillment when you have where to live, what to eat, and so forth. So a little bit like the Maslow triangle, it is the basic. First one needs to be aware of that, first point, and learn how to fulfill it. The second point is kama. Kama means the fulfillment on the social and erotic level. I mean, the Kama Sutra and all the Kama Shastras, texts that are connected to Kama, were texts that were aiming to help people to understand the value of fulfillment on the social and erotic level of their life. So this level is also is getting the adequate amount of efforts, attention, and so forth. The third point that they said that we need to address is dharma, or otherwise they call it as work or purpose, a sense of integration, being part of something bigger in one's own life. This ability of understanding what you need to do, becoming aware of it, and fulfilling that is one of the sources of happiness. And then the fourth aspect was called moksha, or the state of spiritual awakening, and addressing somehow, learning to fulfill the spiritual needs of our being. Now, those 4, we can see that the complexity, they create a whole in which we are becoming aware of all that lies within us. And genuine happiness comes when all those 4 aspects are in wonderful synergy and balance. That one is not taking the other one when there is not this kind of an unbalanced life. In the yogic and tantric tradition, they mentioned that the genuine state of happiness comes from the balancing of these 4 fundamental aspects. And first of all, they call, of course, to become aware of them. As said in the beginning, you cannot transform anything you're not aware of. So, in the exercise that follows, actually, it's this one, just to say, this is some part of the self-contemplation that one has to follow. And then in the exercise that will follow, we will actually aim to tune in with the state of happiness and to realize that the state of happiness is a frequency, is a vibration that we can tune into. Very much so like we tune in the radio in the car that we haven't used for 2 weeks. We tune in by switching the dial. Analogically, we can tune in our being to connect, to tune in with the energies of happiness, which is constantly there. Now, what is actually happening when we are creating this intention and this meditation is that we will tune in with this energy of happiness. Daily, we will tune in with that potential of happiness that exists there in the universe and in our inner universe. And what we will gradually start to discover by doing so in a repetitive way on a daily basis, that happiness is not a far-fetched an idea. Happiness is, when we are tuning in, it appears in each and every moment. What beforehand was seemingly mundane can now be a great source of happiness. And when we deepen the awareness more and more, one will realize, and this was mentioned in the tantric texts, especially texts like the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, that when one deepens that, one is able to experience the sublime nature of one's own being, which was called Anandamaya Kosha, the blissful nature of one's own existence. Now, it was very interesting that all wise men who reached that wonderful state of enlightenment throughout the generation, throughout all the tradition, mentioned that when you reach there, it is just an existential bliss. You reach an existential bliss when you cultivate happiness on more and more layers until what is seemingly a fluctuating state of happiness is deepened more and more and more until you realize that that is your true nature. That is who you truly are, or it is the closest reflection of who you truly are. And this nature, when we realize that the happiness is the inside job, it is when we remove all that which is blocking us from feeling that, and we realize that we are the source of that happiness, that we are in essence in that blissful state. So I know now it seems like a long process, but due to repetition and deepening, we can find that cultivating happiness on all levels of our life, tuning in with the energy of happiness, we can cultivate it fully in our existence. And the last, and definitely not the least, to give love a place of importance in our life. Now, coming back to the story I told you beforehand about, the list of regrets. One of the things that shocked them, that was way above all the other regrets that people had, is the fact that they felt that they didn't love enough in their life. And then we ask ourselves, what stops us from loving? And then often what stops us from loving is we fill our day with many other things and not with love. Now, I'm not just meaning romantic love. It is also that, very, very important. But generally cultivating love in absolutely everything that we are doing. And interestingly enough, one of the things I noticed in this period with some of the people around, because it brought us more inside, very literally, and more kind of just with the people around us, we just have to rise to the challenge and learn how to love more. And I saw many people actually manifesting a unique, wonderful states of kindness that arose from that state of love that started to be deepened in their heart. So about love, we can say that it's both the fundamental energy of creation, and it is also the emotion we feel in our heart. Now, the fundamental energy of the creation was wisely put there in the Gospels, in the book of John, when he said that God is love. And out of this, we can also relate to the fact that one of the fundamental energy of the Creator and the way he even manifests the creation is through a magnitude of love. And when we feel love in our heart, we imitate, otherwise we reflect in our inner life, in our microcosm, we reflect this love that the Creator is also having. Thus, when we cultivate love, we become co-creator. This is why very nicely it is said in the tantric practices that instead of having sex, which is a consumer attitude, you are making love. You're co-creator in this unique symphony of existence and of love. And that's a huge shift. And that is what actually in the tantric they're cultivating, that you learn how to make love with life. Now, it doesn't mean that you run around and do that. It's just that life, you're fusing with it. You make love with it. You put love in absolutely everything that you're doing. And then everything is, you're part of this creation of life. You're co-creator of this wonderful miracle of your existence. Thus, love becomes both the path and the destination. As Jorge Luis Borges wisely said, that love is the alpha and the omega, it's the beginning and an end, as it is a circle, that force of the heart. Now, love is this unique gift that one need to learn how to cherish it. Sometimes we feel that love, anyhow it came, we don't know how it comes, but it just came, and then we don't put it in its right value. Only sometimes after it is gone, we can value it in hindsight. But when one is starting to awaken this power of the heart, you start to cherish it and to relate to it for what it is. It is a calling for us for growth. It is a calling for us to discover ourselves. It is, as I said, a path of our existence. And thus we can shift from the idea that love just happens to love is a choice. And it's a huge thing. It's not like you choose to love that person. I don't feel love, but I choose to love them. Didn't work. Yeah. Love is a choice in our life because love is something that we cultivate and we then multiply it in our being. Now, we are falsely educated by the Hollywood scene and by many other medias that things just happen. You know, most Hollywood things, you live a mundane life. Oh, something happened, you fell in love. Oh, she came to buy coffee there. Things just happen. While in our life, they're not just happening. We need to take an active role. We need to choose love. We need to put love in its rightful place. And by putting love in its rightful place, we will be the first to benefit from it. And we are part of this paying forward, because one of the greatest gifts that we can offer someone is our love. I would say that love does to the creation what the sun did today to London. You know, everything comes to life. It's like there's a process of blooming. When you love someone with that, you see how they grow in front of you. When you love a project like that, you see how the project grows. When you love a friend like that, you see how the friendship grows. Love is this. This is why often love was even compared to the sun. It's this constant heat that gives life to life itself. Thus, when we learn how to love like this, we will see that love won't be compartmentalized in parts of our life, but will be kind of spread in all areas of our life. And then we will, when the heart contaminates all aspects of our life, then life is buzzing and growing in all areas of our existence. The love exercise. And don't worry, we will do at least one of them in a few minutes. The love exercise should be done ideally in the morning, because in the morning we set a certain kind of intention to the day that unfolds. We create a victorial tendency for that which is to come. And it is a very simple exercise. It's an exercise of self-affirmation. And firstly, we will affirm that today I choose love. Coming back to the idea that we are aiming to be like the sun. The second is today I choose to manifest love in all the ways I am inspired. Because there are many ways in which you can manifest love. I mean, one is more romantic, one is more as a friend, one is more the love of a project because it has a vision, one is more the love of your neighbor. There are many forms of love and you need to integrate it rightly. So you won't confuse yourself or anybody else. So the second point is today I choose love in all the ways I am inspired and in an integrated way. So whenever you feel this impulse in your heart, you manifest it in that way. And the third point, which is additional, you can say within today I choose to love you, and you kind of, instead of you can visualize the person. In that moment you choose to love them. You don't have to act in that moment because they might not be next to you. But visualize them and see how that love is a choice. Now often we kind of chose once a while ago to love someone and we just keep it like that. Love needs to be re-evoked. About this, there was this another good Jewish joke that there was a couple going to the rabbi in their 80s. And the woman starts and says, Rabbi, I want a divorce. The rabbi looks, come on, you want the divorce? You're 60 years married. And she says, yes, Rabbi. For 60 years, he hasn't told me I love you. Whoa, the rabbi is shocked. He looks at the man. He said, is this true? For 60 years you didn't tell her you love her? And the man was saying, well, 60 years ago when we got married, I told her I love you. Since then, I haven't changed my mind. So obviously, you don't just once choose to love. You revoke it. You choose to love them again. You choose to love them again. And then sometimes you feel, oh, how much do I love them? What can I do to love more? And then this exercise, you will see actually it is by far more complex effects than what it is seen. This will be revealed to you with the gram of practice. Now I have a suggestion for us. I mean, some of the exercises you can, as you notice, they are a bit more contemplative. You need to write down yourself and so forth. Some of the exercises are more meditative that we can also do together. So I suggest we'll do now a spiritual exercise. Like in anything in life, we become better only with what we exercise. So if we want to spiritualize our life, we need to create spiritual exercises. Yoga and meditation are one of them. And there are many others that now you discover more and more. And I thought that there's a wonderful way also for us to interact through this medium, that we will choose one of the four, or we have one of these four exercises, and one of them we will practice together. So either we will practice together the detachment exercise, then when you become aware of that which happened, you realize it is you awaken detachment and so forth. We can practice the mental control exercise, this walking meditation. We can practice the exercise of love that I mentioned beforehand, or we can practice the happiness exercise of tuning into the energy of happiness. Now, my suggestion is like this, that just write there in the comments which one you want to do, and we'll have the majority rules. How many want to do, just choose one. If you insist, you can choose two, and we will just put 2 votes in. But we will just take now this minute, and we will see which ones are coming in, and then accordingly we will practice them together. So at least one we managed to practice together. And as you see, I would warmly recommend you now. I think this talk will also be on. It is on our Facebook page. Will be on our YouTube page maybe. That you can, I don't know if you didn't manage to write down, at least now maybe you will manage to write down, and you can find the exercise and you can repeat them home. Now also maybe before we continue the exercise, if you have any more questions or any other comments from those home or the people which are 2 meters away from me by law, here helping me in this talk. Everybody voted for love? How many? One for happiness. One detachment. Somebody voted 3 times for love. It's a bit cheeky. Okay, let's do the love exercise then. For this, we will play for you a piece of music. Now, this piece of music was composed by one of my wonderful friends and fellow yogis, Radu Solomon. He composed it to the woman he loves. And this piece of music, you see also, it's very charged like this. And you can then now tune in to the energies of love that was done, was impregnated in the music. And I will guide you with the way we do the exercise. So let me just check with our technical team that the music is ready. Is not yet ready. So I will just repeat that this is an exercise that when one is doing is we're aiming to create a very firm intention to cultivate more love in our life. We do so by having this very firm affirmation and by aiming to tune in to the subtle sublime energies of love. And we will, as you see, I will guide it. We will let a few moments in between the stages so it's easy to guide. So we sit with our eyes closed, taking a few deep breaths and descending our attention to the middle of the chest, to the heart. And now we will repeat within. Today, I choose love. Feel how this affirmation echoes in your heart. Today, I choose love. Once again, we will repeat within. Today, I choose love. And how this intention is crystallized within a firm inner choice. After we feel that our heart is abundantly filled with the sublime energies of love, we will repeat, today I choose to manifest love in all the ways I am inspired. Becoming aware how the wisdom of love takes its place in our heart and guides our actions. Today, I choose to love, and now visualize a person or a project or an aspect and put it there. So repeat within, today, I choose to love, and direct that love towards a person or project, an aspect of your life. Become now aware how you shift gradually to the perspective of the heart, shifting to love by a firm choice, shifting to the perspective of love, shifting to the heart. And now we will slowly open our eyes, feeling ourselves abundant now with love. We slowly return. So now if anybody has questions, it's our time to talk a little bit through this medium. And just as a word of conclusion, that in these unprecedented times in which we are, now we kind of even a bit got used to it. It's very interesting how we so quickly get used to the fact that every day feels like Sunday here in London. So few cars, so little hustle and bustle. Everybody are more inside. Not to just get used to it on the outside, but to really use this period as a great tool to transform one's own self. When we cannot go outside, for me it seems to be very clear that the universe, God, however you want to put it, calls us to go inside. I know from my now years of practice, I've been doing this, I've been practicing yoga and tantra for now 19 years. And out of these 19 years, I spent around 2.5 years in solitude. So like when you are now home, I just did it in solitude. It's not in one go, but periodically. And I found that actually this time of going in, time of recollection is radically shifting then later on the way we will interact with the world. It is, I would say it's like a global retreat that we are invited on, a unique retreat, definitely, but we are invited on, and I hope that this information and what we spoke about this evening will help us to get the best out of it. How many of us wanted more time home? How many of us wanted more time to dedicate to our close one? How many of us wanted to shift something in their life? Obviously, I hope many of us. And now it's exactly the time to do it. So I would say let's not just wait for this period to over so we can go back to how we used to, but take this period in both hands to do something which is extraordinary within our life, and to fully let even this period to blossom in our heart and to lead to a genuine shift and to the spiritualization of our being. Do you have any questions or? There's no questions. This book is not yet translated to English, but I hope one day it will. But for those who are curious, a lot of this information that was now delivered like this is delivered in much greater depth in our yoga and tantra courses. And we are having a great privilege also to share that which we assimilated. We are a charity in which all our teachers are dedicating their time and efforts to deliver and to offer this message that we are practicing forward. Also as a charity, we're having the great joy of offering free yoga 3 times a week, now online. Beforehand was 6 times a week. So on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, you can join us for a free yoga session. And at 5:30, we will offer, let's see until when this period is continuing, but we continue to offer free lectures Wednesdays and Sundays and many other activities. So stay tuned with us. Yes.
So, question from Radhika. When you were in solitude, how did you cope with loneliness?
The loneliness that I felt was usually felt in the first day or two, because I got so used to kind of affirm my existence by being next to others. And then when you're just alone, you have nothing to affirm your existence but yourself. And in the first instant, it led me to a certain kind of feeling of it like, I have nobody to talk to, I have nobody to share my feelings. I felt a little bit confined by it. But then, deepening that, I realized actually the opposite appeared. I found that I have the ability of connecting and relating to myself in such a depth as the retreats grew, as the time grew, that I felt that feeling of loneliness is not anything something that my heart was feeling. I was thinking I was lonely, but when I was looking inside, there was no loneliness. I just felt this wonderful sense of intimacy with myself, and then with it came this intimacy with life itself. I felt I was intimate with life, with each and every aspect. And for me, later on, it deepened to the feeling and the realization that I'm never alone, because there's always this presence of God there. I mean, God is always there. And to find in Him somehow the best of friends, the companion of the heart, the closest, the most intimate, the lover of the soul, I found that this shift from the outer loneliness to genuinely feeling close to Him, I would say, helped me to eradicate the feeling of loneliness in my life. And when I eradicated the feeling of loneliness in my life, I stopped acting because I wanted to cover my loneliness. I started to enjoy being alone. I still enjoy very much being alone. Because in that place I find this recollection, I find this very great intimacy with myself, the superior self, not just telling jokes to myself, but a real sense of being connected. No more questions?
So one more question from Alina. When you get connected in such a nice way in solitude and raise your vibration, I think she's speaking about herself, so when she's in solitude, how can I stay in my lovely vibration when I go back into social life?
I mean, as I feel it, those realizations that appear in solitude, then when they become more crystallized within, they don't wither or fade. The more they're crystallized, the more they stay with you. And it's just due to a process of repetition. I remember first time I was doing a retreat like this, I felt like, oh, what do I do when I'm back? I didn't know how to do with people and so forth. But then gradually, as it's been 19 years of doing at least a few weeks a year, and some years even more, it grew to a feeling that it is always there, and it becomes much more tangible. And it creates a genuine independence. I noticed that loneliness created dependency on me, on the society, on the environment, while being really independent made it so, like, overcoming that made me independent, and I was more able to share love, for example. I wasn't expecting to be loved just to get off my solitude, or like not to feel lonely anymore, and this is why I was loving. So this will come through repetition, and then you will manage actually to give much more, because that retreat is not just a gift to yourself, it's a gift to everybody around you, because you become much better in giving.
And a question from Rashmi along the same lines. How do you keep a balance between inside and outside life when you find so much joy being inside?
There is a great wisdom in life. The same wisdom that the heart has a pulsation of in and out. Also life, when we follow it, will have the pulsation of outwardly manifested and inwardly manifested. Personally, what I do, I start my day without my phone on, and I just take the first hours of my day for personal practice, for meditation, for yoga, for time to myself. And then I start my day, otherwise outwardly manifesting, teaching, speaking with people, meetings, life, work, the whole rest. And I feel this is creating a kind of a pulsation. And then during the year, I take moments or periods, a week or two in the summer, a week or two usually in the winter, of, again, this pulsation, going inside for a while and then having kind of balancing the outer life. Because as I see it, only the correct balance, exactly in the same way our heart works, is the heart teaches us the right way of balancing those two fundamental attitudes of in and out, until eventually, and that's the great beauty of it, you find no difference. There appear to be a certain kind of a unified factor, when regardless if you are with hundreds of people or by yourself, it is the same you that is manifested. There is a continuity of the experience of I.
And Adi is asking, how important is human touch? And secondly, can you please tell us a little more about the courses?
The human touch. There was something very interesting that they realized after the First World War. There were many orphanages, because many people die, and the many orphans, and in orphanages they were giving them food and shelter, but they were not touching them. And they noticed that even if they had everything, those children, because they were not touched, they awakened disease. They used to constantly move like this. They're terrifying stories, actually. And this is why now in places like this, they have cuddle hours, because it is that important for our structure, for us as human beings. So in this period in which we are so afraid of touching, the social distancing, when we are getting out of touch in order to protect ourselves or one another, at least with those who live next to you, I would make it so that you do touch them. I mean, there is a level of communication that is through words, and there is this direct communication of the heart that is done through touch. This is an extremely important and valuable aspect that we need to cultivate. I mean, often we touch in a very superficial way, thus we are not being really touched in the same way, and we long for it so much. I would say that when we awaken this understanding of the need that we have to touch and to be touched, we are opening ourselves to touch life and to be touched by life and to really radically transform our life. About our courses, we are here in Tara and now around the globe, and we are a federation called the Atman Federation. We are part of it here in the UK as Tara. We are offering, our main courses are in yoga and tantra. We offer courses which is done in a systematic way, very much so like a university, in which every week you come, there is a theoretical explanation, for example, of a new posture of yoga, some fundamental elements, a bit like what we spoke today, of understanding how to control your mind, the power of the heart, self-knowledge according to the 7 fundamental layers of the being, which are called the chakras. So that is the course is based or is built to bring in tools of self-discovery for the aspirant, for the one who's walking the course or walking the classes. So it is built that every year in September we're opening a new course, and it is done with, hopefully by September we'll be out of it, but students come here to our center in London, for example. The class is taking 2 hours. Some of it theoretical explanation, some of it yoga practice, some of it meditation. We also have plenty of extracurriculum events such as a wonderful party, interesting workshop, lectures, men's and women's groups. So there is a lot that one can learn. We offer written materials so one can deepen the study home. And what I noticed now teaching here in London for the last 10 years, it is offering the individual a possibility to discover oneself, to discover the potentials in life, to completely shift one's own interaction with the others and with one's own self. That for those who will have the stamina to walk this path, it is one of the greatest gifts that we can offer ourselves. Good then. Thank you very much for your attention. I just saw a camera, but I hope there were people behind that. And we look forward to see you again in our future events. So stay tuned. As I said, we have 3 yoga classes for free a week. We'll have at least 1 or 2 seminars like this, talks during the week until we are back to our life. And also we are a charity, so for those who wish to contribute to help us to continue to offer this, we will have for you now a link in our Facebook page. And thank you very much for your questions and kind attention.